Welcome to the Spark Joy podcast. I am your host, Bonnie Brown, and it is my honor that you are back here again, wanting to tune in and hear what I'm going to bring to the table. There's a big white table here today, and I'm just feeling really energized and excited about this whole subject of born again business and what that looks like. I am getting all born again this week. I'm going to get born again with you in regard to our careers, in regard to your finances, in regard to how you bring your work forth in the world. But, it's a time to get born again in our work and what we do and how that comes forth in the world. And that is why, it's why I'm sitting here today and wanting to share my joy and passion on the subject, which is to get your work born again. I'm having a great week. Today is Tuesday. Gosh, it is Tuesday. And look, I've got a great subject that I actually want to talk to you all about. And, it was divinely inspired. I asked God, what should I talk about this week? And I just kind of heard born again. And I thought, that's awesome, God. If you haven't been born again in God, that's a fun experience to get. Yeah, basically it's a brand new life. And some of us need to actually get born again in our business, in our finances, in our profit. And so these are some of the concepts I'm going to be talking to you about this week. I'm born again, and I have a born again life, and I have a born again spirit. And then I'm having a born again career. And so I think that there is really relevant. It doesn't matter if you've been born again or if you haven't been born again, but you can definitely get your career, your finances, what you do for work in the world, that can all get born again. And, I even think of my father, actually, Ian. So when my dad had been a mechanic, he was very successful in his early 20s, and my parents were quite affluent. It was kind of quite fun. We had a lot of choice, financially during the 80s and just growing up with my mum and dad. But when my dad had always been an entrepreneur. But he had a failed business. My dad started actually a website company in the late 90s, and that's where I really broke my teeth in sales. So I would go door to door to different workshops, all kinds of just, industrial businesses, knocking on the door and asking them, did they have a website? And so in 1998 and 1999, most of those places like mechanics or small manufacturers, turners, all these types of different, real small to medium sized mum and dad kind of businesses, they didn't have a website. And so I was basically selling them a digital online brochure, and dad had an office of, creatives who were churning out these websites, and he was learning along the way. But that business kind of came to an end, and my dad went through a born again career. And he actually was chatting to my cousin who was studying law at the time. And my cousin suggested that my dad should train as a nurse. And my dad had always been a business person. And so my dad did. He ended up going and studying for the first time and, got his degree in nursing, a Bachelor of Nursing. So his career got born again. I think he was about 42. My dad is an entrepreneur again now. He's actually just retired from that nursing career, which he was really successful at, and traveled all throughout Australia. But now he has an online business, and he's getting born again at, how old are you, Dad? 66 or forever 35. And so I think it's, great to always be open to the fact that life does, there's ebbs and flows. And that your career, it's not fixed. And I was talking to a friend in Spa the other day, we were discussing teenagers and how to, pick a career. And you're really looking at, getting skills and, and then developing those skills, which, can go in so many directions. And we gather, insights and knowledge and tools and experience and skills as we go through adulthood, with our career and, with the ups and downs, failures, successes, and some of those are financial, some of those, are just through relationships, maybe I went through a season where I was bullied in a role and, some of the dynamics of my co-workers that wasn't working. And so I really got pulled out of my career that I was doing at the time. And, it was kind of the trajectory which has kind of put me onto this new path of entrepreneurship and online business and being a communicator and a speaker, a podcaster, an author, a writer, and beginning to develop skills and knowledge in a brand new career that has more a global thrust. Yeah. So I was having coffee with my sister this week and I said that, I'm not really, for me personally in my born again career, this trajectory, this path that I'm going through right at the moment, my born again career is really focused on more a global international business, and I'm not interested so much in just business in my backyard or in New Zealand, which is my homeland, my home, country of birth. But that I've really got my eyes, my sights set on, being more centralized with my business in terms of, international cities and populations and groups of people and serving them in those places. You can be open to it at any stage, a born again career. And so, I'm, personally born again spiritually, in Jesus and, and I enjoy a born again life and I have a born again spirit, but it's something pretty phenomenal when God brings you into a born again career. And that's what I've been, how do I say this is, like God has been, encouraging me to step forward into my born again career in Him and surrendering, my career and my work unto Him. The work of my hands, or, there's been little work of my hands because God has had me in this season of actually, He's been refining me and preparing me and processing me and emptying me so that then I can be, a vessel and a conduit, which can, right now, like I'm clear that, my vessel and my container, that He can flow through me and I can come and serve you. And so that is my born again career pivot. And and I'm enjoying it. So I'm getting all born again over here in the Spark Joy era. And I want you to come and get born again with me. And, there's many opportunities of what that could look like. But I feel like that, as God has refined me and brought me into, this career of business and God and entrepreneurship and being a transformational coach, is that He wants to, through me, come and, identify different ones who will be my clients and I'll be working with, who are going to get completely born again. Like as I was walking to the studio today, I saw this really cool book and I might just reach for it for a minute. Actually, maybe we'll cut the video and I'll come back to it. Where is it? And as I walk past, it's called Prophet. And as I was can you see that on the screen? Not that, I don't actually know what the content's about, but there's something about my new born again era as being somebody who would speak from the future into the present and call you forward. And so sometimes I like to say that I'm a futurist. I'm somebody who, can hear the word of the Lord, can hear God, for others, if you allow me, if that's something, and hopefully, teach others how to hear God's voice for themselves, because that makes sense. You want to, at the moment, I'm learning how to edit videos for my podcast. It's always good to know how to do these things yourself. You don't want to be going secondhand to somebody, to hear God's voice. But there is something really powerful about, being around somebody and being in the flow where heaven and, the voice of God's really present. So, that's something that I am, delicately balancing with God. As I came in here today into the studio to talk about this topic of being born again, I thought, gosh, I kind of caught a reflection of myself walking down the city streets, and I had a little suitcase and a bottle of water. I had my computer tucked under my arm, and I'm wearing this like long star dress on a Tuesday. And I thought, gosh, I feel like Mary Poppins. And there's something about this new born again era that I'm stepping into, and, what I'm doing with, creating a business that is, about, the gifts that God's given me, the talents, the voice, and, to come and encourage others and to help raise up other people who would be able to do what they've never done before. And so I think that, you need to hear this message. Maybe you're one of them. As you listen to this podcast, you might be like, gosh, like I'm at the end of a season, or I've come out of like a rough time and I'm wondering what on earth is next, what is for me. And it just seems so dire and like the end of the road. And I love it when, from my own experience, those end of the road seasons where you're just think, I cannot see anything past this. Maybe there's a lot of change even happening of business and, the economy, and you're thinking, gosh, there's no profit in what I'm doing anymore. How can I pivot? Or, like, what's next? I'm exhausted. I'm tired. All of those things. But, I'm here today to encourage you to say, actually, it might be your born again season. It's time for you to relook at your skills and experiences and all the insights and knowledge that you currently have, and to reimagine it and, come and wash it in the water, so to speak, and let some of the, the dross and the dirty stuff kind of wash away, which is like the tiredness when, when you become aware that you're like, I just can't go on doing business, my career as I've been doing it, that I'm ready for something new and to step into an upgrade or an up level into something that's more aligned. And so I would encourage you to just, firstly, as you listen to this podcast, maybe drop it in the comments. I hop on my social media and say, Bonnie, I want to get born again. And maybe just you could let me know what kind of born again you want to get. Is it that you want to get born again in your business? Maybe you want to get born again spiritually, and I can definitely point to the right people and we can help you do that, born again spiritually. But we should get your bank account born again. We should get your workplace born again. And yeah. So I'm just going to get all born again over here on the Spark Joy podcast. And I just love this word, because born again, that word, because I grew up in the 90s. I won't give anything away exactly how old I am. But actually I did celebrate my birthday the other day. I think I told you. In the 1980s, I was, in kind of like a charismatic kind of church, and everybody was getting born again. And it's just such a funny kind of retro word that it's from the Bible, guys, but you don't really hear people talking about born again so much these days. And so I just thought it was a fun play on words, because, I think the thing is that once you do get born again, if you truly get spiritually born again, which is pretty amazing, that does flow through into every area of your business. But I think if, depending what stage you're at or what kind of born again you want to get, but maybe you're just like, hey, I'm actually like, there's a whole lot of areas in my life and I'm actually really happy with how they are and I'm kind of satisfied and I'm good spiritually, Bonnie. I don't need your kind of born again. That's cool too. We can keep chatting about the spiritual born again. But, this episode is really about your career. And so I'm really just kind of playing on the words and the idea of being born again. And, because born again is really, it's a brand new start. It's a new beginning. And sometimes we just need to actually, get a new beginning and let the other stuff fall away. Fresh vision and divine new beginnings are incredibly inspiring and really bring so much hope when you realize that there's like a reset, and that you don't have to kind of continue on. You're like, oh my goodness, thank goodness it's a new day. And there can be, new ways to kind of profit in your business and with the work that you're creating. So anybody can experience a renewal, in your career or in your business. And it's really about having fresh set of eyes. And sometimes if you've just been looking at your business, maybe for a long time, if you've had it, 10 years, that sometimes you do need fresh eyes and vision on it, or you need to take yourself out of your business so that you can see from a new perspective. And some of the ways that I would recommend, bringing this born again energy back into your business would be travel is fantastic. Maybe looking at other markets. So if there are your current industry and your business that you're in, if you were to then look at your business in another market and see how, maybe some of, another business, not a competitor, because you probably don't compete. Maybe if you're more a local business, but if you are an online business, taking time to vision, and rather than just like business as usual, think, how can I bring this Bonnie born again energy into my work and what I'm doing? So there's something about being able to see your business through branding. When you see yourself, when you see fresh branding for your business, it helps like reflect back a new like identity or energy in your business. And that can really feel like, a born again kind of energy because, if you've had the same logo or perhaps marketing or the approach, how you prospect for new customers, or, the customer flow, how customers come into your business and, how you onboard them, all of those kinds of aspects of your business are up for renewal. You can look at them and just think, pretend that your business is brand new, and would you choose to continue doing it, how you've been doing it. And I just think with this born again, when you do get born again spiritually, there's a lightness. And I mean, in Jesus' name, like when people get born again, it was a long time ago for me, but, I've got a friend actually who just got born again. But, they say, because I've met, I've had friends and stuff that have got saved, and they say like the sky looked bluer and the grass looked greener and they just had so much peace. And I think that's this born again kind of energy that we want to bring, this spark joy, born again energy to your life and your business. That, I think peace is a great thing to follow. If you don't have peace or it feels heavy, gosh, for goodness, if you dread it, even having to open up your email, or you're not enjoying the types of customers you're dealing with, or things, maybe your colleagues or the structure of your business, maybe the leadership, any of that kind of thing, you can just get born again. Okay. And I will put in the show notes some practical steps that you can do that immediately. And even if you choose not to work with me personally, the reason I've got this podcast, it's free to listen to, and I'm really giving away all the best insights and knowledge and wisdom that I've acquired along the way, and, completely free. And I, please pass it along. Maybe somebody, maybe you've had coffee with somebody this week and they're just absolutely drained and they've just said, I can't go, another month like this. And you can just and get them to listen to Spark Joy podcast and the Born Again show, which is this week. And we can get your business, your purpose, the work that you're creating in the world born again. And I think it's actually just it's a good thing just to do. I mean, really, you should probably do it once a year, really, and just think, do I even like what I'm doing? Am I passionate? Do I want to spring out of bed and do this? And so we want to just feel connected and passionate about what we're doing. So this is what I kind of wrote down before in my notes, that what I want to do is actually show people how they can get born again in their business, born again in their career, born again in their renewal of their work. And, I've shared bits and pieces about, how I've been born again in my career. And the thing is that when you are, I'm in the Bible, which is what I'm taking the born again theme from this week. Jesus says that you can't go back into your mother's womb and, get born again kind of thing. But that there is what happens when, as a Christian, when you get born again, it's basically spiritually, you're like a baby. Your spirit is being reborn. And sometimes like the spirit of our work and how we're bringing that forth in the world actually needs to be, reborn. So, when you think about a baby, it's helpless, and a baby is obviously a baby child. And it can't walk and it can't talk and it's incredibly dependent. It can't even feed itself and, it cries a lot and, and everything's new. A baby has never been here before. And so when I want you to think about if your work, the renewal of your work, the renewal of your career, if your career and your business was to be reborn, that you're bringing in some of those aspects of a baby. Because I think we can just get so confident and blasé. If you can do your work with your eyes shut and your hands tight behind your back and, you could just do it inside and out, you could probably drive to work with a blindfold, then maybe you do need to get born again in your work. Because, it's really healthy to be trying something and doing something, in your business, and in your work, which makes you feel like a baby. It's about you're going into like something that will feel incredibly, it's like outside of your comfort zone, right? And, it's putting yourself into discomfort so you can grow. And so that is why your work needs to get born again. So you've got born again profit. And I know quite a few of you would love your bank account to be born again. And, I would encourage you to invite God into your, into your bank account and, and into your income streams and thinking about how, is there a way for renewal to happen, for born again profit and just seeing revenue in a fresh light and even the purpose of the revenue that perhaps you're already generating in your business. And, is there a way for that to be multiplied in a way that perhaps you've never even thought that was possible. So these are some of the ideas. Basically, it's like giving yourself permission to innovate and bring forth some of these, born again innovations, dare I say. It would be good if we could, see more of these come forward where people are really, venturing out of their, out of what they've known and allowing themselves just to be an infant in some areas in your business and your life. We don't want you, just to be a complete grown up because it probably means you're a bit stagnant, if that's the case. And I always like to think about young people, especially as I've gone through, this process over the last 5 years. I think about people who are like 18 or, 21. And so they really are kind of at that, born again phase. They've left school. Maybe they've, had their first job or so part time. Their perspective of like viewing their path forward is unhindered because they don't, they haven't done their 20s, they haven't done their 30s or 40s or 50s and, beyond. They don't have any of that history. And so I think part of this born again energy that I want you to bring into, the renewal of your work and your career is the idea that your history is a bit obsolete. So if you can, because I think we can become very prideful about, I've done this and I know that, but it's great to be a beginner and just to say, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn and just kind of have that heart posture of, being somebody who wants to step up into something new and be brave. I mean, these are all the things that we want to have the whole map. We want the A, B, C, D, through to Z before we'll even kind of get out of bed and put our shoes on, where somebody who is younger, let's say, if they're in their early, late teens, early 20s, without that historical evidence, they're willing to try new things and be a baby about it. And quite often to their great success, when they see some things that would, really work out really well. And so, yeah, I think it's a good thing to bring in some of that young teenage energy or young adult energy so that you can reimagine your work and what's possible. So just to kind of summarize and wrap this up this week, I was thinking that we don't want to be forced into a situation where, we're having to get born again in our work through crisis, or, sometimes people become Christians that way. I don't know. You hear those kind of testimonies, don't you, where they say, I was a drug addict, or, I was living on the streets and things got terrible. And then I turned to God, and I think sometimes even in our, our career and our work, we kind of wait until it's terrible, and then or, something's not functioning, not working, and it gets to that crisis point where you're forced to really have to kind of get born again in your work and your career. And so it's nice if you've got a choice and to experiment and say, hey, well, actually everything's going quite hunky-dory, to use that word in the USA. I don't know. But, it's going quite well. But I want to be open to the idea that, there could be some areas which could get born again in my work. And, and the whole, if something is going to get born again in your, in your business and your work, you want it to be something that's tied to profit, or fulfillment or purpose or, impact, legacy, all of those types of outcomes, positive outcomes. And so there are some of the reasons that, that you would adopt this theme that I'm talking about this week and say, actually, Bonnie's got a point. I need to pay attention to what she's saying, and I trust what she's saying. She's saying, hey guys, stop. You need to get born again in your career and in your work. And, if you've got a phone and you have ChatGPT or any of, Claude or any of these AIs, you should definitely, spend some time on it, because the world is getting born again right now with technology and work, and in terms of, what the future's going to look like with, how we interact with all of this new AI technology. And so, I'm sorry, but if you're just coasting along and you're like, just kind of head in the sand and think that maybe you're almost retired, or I don't know what your scenario is, but it's good to say, I'm willing to be a baby again. And maybe, gosh, I love it when you have those like late blooming careers. Like, what's the guy who started McDonald's? Ray Crockett? I can't even think of his name. But, people that start their careers later in life. But like me, starting my podcast career right now. So yeah, it's good to get born again. It's good to be open to the idea that what you've always known, what you've always done, even if it's been successful, maybe you've enjoyed it, that there could be a brand new page, a brand new book, something else for you to open up and begin and to pursue, and that you should always be open to a born again experience with your work and your purpose. And so welcome to these concepts. I'm so glad that you've joined me this week. My name is Bonnie, and yeah, hopefully you'll come back again next week. Did that make sense? It was quite out there. If you haven't heard the born again, you might just think, gosh, that sounds pretty religious. Clearly, I'm not actually that religious. I love Jesus a lot, and I'm definitely a Christian, but I think that just the whole idea of, I just thought it was a good way to kind of address some of these things this week when I was thinking about, my own career that's getting rebirthed right now in Jesus' name. So have a great week. And maybe I should pray over you guys, because I'm actually really good at praying. My daughters, like when I was really, really sad, and I was like, what's my career? And it's all come to an end. It come to an end, and I didn't know what way to go. I'd been kind of searching and felt really, really lost. And my lovely little daughter, she was probably about 9 at the time, and I just, I was in a self-pity moment thinking everything's terrible and I'll never have a career ever again. I was really like in the pit. I'm sure that nobody has ever done that. That terrible self-talk where you're just like pulling yourself to pieces, to shreds, like being the meanest person you have ever met, and saying it to yourself. And then my lovely little 10-year-old, she's like, Mummy, you're really good at lots of things. And then I was like, what? And she's like, you're really good at putting makeup on, Mummy, and you're good at baking cakes, and you're really good at praying and loving Jesus. And so I am good at praying. And so, this is definitely a spiritual work podcast. And so it's not just, some clever concepts that I've come up with, but it's with the power of God and the Spirit of God behind it. So, I hope that you get some of that through this video if you're watching it, that I would just release the power to be born again in your work and in your career. And I just, just declare and decree that there is, new profit, new renewal, new work for you to do, and that it's not, the end of the story, but that there's, a new day and some new work for you to do. And I just bless the work of your hands, and that you would go forth and prosper and be successful with everything that you put your hands to. And so please join me again. So I'm not looking for, all right, let's start again. So this is not ordinary. I'm not into, basically you get A and then you add B and then you'll, what's A and B? No, maybe we'll do a different analogy. Oh my goodness. I'm not really interested in like 1 + 2 = 3. I'm more interested in 5 + 1 - 2 = 100. This kind of unexplainable kind of glory economics. It's the extra. It's the miracle business, something that is, that God's hand is on. That's something that is extraordinary, extra unique. There's lots of just ordinary business around. But imagine when you invite God into your business and into your workplace, and then what he could do with that. And so, I really making myself available. I can come into your workplace and, Bonnie can come and I can bring God with me because he's inside of me. And you can decide, do you want to have God and Bonnie show up at your workplace? And I can come in, maybe you want to hear a word from God, or you want to hear it's like divine strategy and inspiration and, the knowledge of how you can increase wealth and profit in your business. Or maybe you just want Bonnie as the consultant. So you can pick, you can either have God and Bonnie, or you can just have Bonnie. God will come along with me because he's inside of me. And so I can't like leave him at home, but he'll let me, take the lead. But then, if you think, no, actually I want God and Bonnie, he'll come with me and I'll let him lead the meeting. And then he can bring his divine strategy and knowledge and wisdom because he created all of this, And so even if you don't know God, it's free. It's not free to hire me, but God is free. It says freely give, freely receive. So I can bring God to your workplace. And who doesn't want God? Do you remember that song actually? If God was one of us and, if he was like riding on the bus. Do you know the song? Maybe let me just play it. It's such a fantastic song. And let's play it quickly. If God was one of us. God was one of us. Well, he actually was one of us. Christ was one of us. He came. Here it is, Joan. Is it Joan Osborne? Let's have a listen. It is. Do you know this song? If God was one of us. So, I can bring God to your workplace. That would be pretty cool. That is a marketing strategy right there. Can you imagine the morning team meeting? People are like, gosh, we've got a team meeting on Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. and God's coming with Bonnie. Yeah, that's cool. Anyway, I'll put my calendar link down below. And if you want God and Bonnie to come to your team meeting, we can definitely come. Like the Joan Osborne song. It's along. Yeah, it's good. We need God. But if you don't believe in God, like I've said all the way along, I have lots of friends that have zero faith in God. I have a lot of faith in God. And so we can just dial that dial wherever, I want to say where you're comfortable, but probably, I'll be honored if you bring me into your workplace and you're like, Bonnie, we just want like 5% of God. Like we want the divine strategy. We want you to hear from God for our workplace. Like how for goodness sake, we want to be more profitable. If there's some customers that you know about that we haven't targeted, we want to know, like, where do we find them? And, I can definitely give you those kind of insights. It's basically, I'll just pause that. It's, consulting. I'm a consultant who brings God with me, and your business, will prosper, and it will be fun as well, because God's really fun. I know people, usually you wouldn't really, God's usually at church on Sunday, and, but, I'm pulling God out of church on Sunday, and I'm going to bring him to your workplace, and I'm going to bring him into your business. He's in my business, and I want to bring him to your business. And I'm sure that you'll be, very curious what he has to say about your business. Like the Joan Osborne song, when God walks through your business, what's he going to say about your business? Because, there's some invisible realms, and people wonder, some of these struggles that some of the things that aren't working in your business, sometimes there's a spiritual strategy to it. And so it's just about bringing, the fun of that. And so I'm definitely, I'm a happy consultant, a happy coach, and just bring the joy of the Lord and the power of God. If that's what you would like to see in your business, we can go covert, or I can just go whatever you want. I'll send through the application. And if you're curious, you should definitely fill out the application, and we have a chat about it. And I can come in, bring God to your team meeting soon, or to your board meeting, and it'll be great to meet you. I'm Bonnie Brown, and thank you so much for listening to the Spark Joy podcast this week. I've kind of gone all over the place, really. There's been a few tangents, but yeah, it's been great to be here together. I feel like that I'm like, you're there and I'm here, and, we're connected. Like, I can feel the energy, and I can feel you here. We're going to do business together, and I'm going to make your business great. Like, it's kind of a funny slogan, isn't it? Kind of like, make America great again. Let's make your business great again. Let's make your born again life in business, born again work. Let's make it great again. And there's lots of different ways that we can do that. And so thank you so much for joining me. Bye-bye.